Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you are in this present moment. This is Eric Castillo here with another beautiful episode of the Infinite Talks Pod. And welcome back, folks. We have another episode, and I want to talk about something that is affecting our communities all across the nation and all across the world, and respects to everybody who works in the line of protecting families from domestic violence. Shout outs to everybody who works in conjunction to create a peaceful community. Um, I'm part of the Domestic Violence Coalition here in Laredo, Texas, and it takes a team and a village to contribute and be able to collaborate with each other so that we can create a peaceful domestic environment. And this episode is also for justice for Celeste and all the young children that suffer from domestic violence from their if they're going through a relationship or if they're in a domestic violence household. And prayers for all those families that have lost the battle to domestic violence. This is a very haunting issue, especially because we just learned about what happened to the little young child, 14, 15-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Rest in peace to her. Make sure that you you understand what happened in that case, because it can happen to any child, any teenage kid out there in the community. It's very easily confusing for a child who might not have the grasp on reality, and they can easily make some bad judgment calls and end up in a tough situation where they're being coerced or manipulated to be in a relationship that they don't is not healthy for them, that is not beneficial for them, especially when it's a older adult, dating a young child, which is already a red flag. Having communication with that, and then also being in a relationship where they might be the same age, teenagers both, but if one is being harassed, mentally, emotionally, physically, it's a big no-no, and I want to talk about this today. I want to make sure that people understand that the numbers of these incidents are growing, throughout the states, and we need to find, communication and awareness on how to, not let it happen and not evolve into that situation. So I want to talk about that today, and also cover a little bit of the about the Celeste Rivas case, which is evolving as we speak. There's a lot of new tips and things that are happening with the Celeste Rivas case, and I don't know. It's very confusing at the same time, because that case is there's a lot of internet investigators who are putting the pieces to the puzzle together, and it just looks very wild, very sad. So first, let me give you a couple of stats. Domestic violence is widespread. It's affecting millions of families and occurring across all demographics. Though it's disproportionately does impact more women than men. Statistics show that from the CDC that about 41% of women and 26% of men have experienced physical violence, sexual violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. You can recognize domestic violence by signs like control, insults, jealousy, and physical harm. If you or someone you know needs help, contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1 800 799 7233. That's 1 800 799 7233. Or visit their website at thehotline.org. Statistics say that prevalence approximately 44% women and 26% of men have experienced domestic violence, which is as mentioned. It impacts over 61 million women and 53 million men have experienced psychological aggression by an intimate partner. That's a high percentage, guys. A high number of people. The age group is usually women aged between 16 to 24 years old are most likely to be victimized by an intimate partner. Underreporting. There's a lot of underreporting because there's a lot of cases that never get called into the light, so most domestic violence incidents are not reported to the police. Signs of domestic violence. The signs of domestic violence include emotional abuse, which is name calling, insults, and putting you down. Technically, just, harassing you verbally. Controlling behaviors, jealousy, possessiveness, trying to control your finances, or tracking your location and communication. Those are controlling behaviors. You can easily not think that that's violence, but that is the beginnings of domestic violence. Isolation, preventing you from going to work or school or seeing your family or your friends. If they're trying to control you, your partner, from going out and seeing your friends, your family, or going out to school or work, that is a form of domestic violence. It's called isolation. Physical and sexual violence, hitting, kicking, shoving, choking, or forcing you to have sex against your will, that is a form of domestic violence because they're going against what you want to do and they're forcing you or hitting you or kicking you or threatening you with physical harm. Threats, threatening to harm you, children or pets, or threatening with a weapon. Threatening to harm you, your children, your pets, or just making, vocal threats that they're going to do something to you or with a weapon, that is considered domestic violence. Blaming you, that goes like the coercion, like of messing with your mindset. Blaming you for the abuse or telling you that you deserve it. And for most part, a lot of the people, the victims, they start believing that. They're like, yeah, it's my fault. And unfortunately, it's really hard to get them out of it because they've been abused so much and traumatized so much that they actually start believing those lies. The power of the control that they have over them is taken over. So these are the forms of domestic violence. But then, how do you help somebody who experiences domestic violence? So offer support. Let them know that you care and that they are not alone. Offering support, like, hey, we know you're going through this. You're not alone. Although it's really hard to get them to talk about it sometimes. To even if you're one of those people that's very close, they build that trust and that bond that you're able to support, and you talk about these issues, make sure that you let them know that they're not alone. And because they know that they're going to go through like the whole going through the police, putting a report, going to maybe like a safe haven and the division of the family. It's very challenging. It's not easy. You have to believe them. You have to validate their experiences and offer non-judgmental, and to hear them out and really not judge them like, hey, you caused this or you're part of this problem. Just hear them out. Hearing them out gives them a voice. So offer resources. There's a lot of resources in your national, all internationally and nationally. But if you're in your local town, like look for the domestic violence people. It could be your DA, the district attorney. It could be your county judge. It can be any law enforcement. It could be also there's domestic violence safe havens for families that have gone through domestic violence. I know here in Laredo it's Casa Misericordia. Shout out to them because they help those families that are going through any of those episodes. And then offer help with safety planning if they are open to it. Obviously, right? Help them create a safety plan for escaping the abuse. Escaping the house, escaping the situation, helping them like, hey, you're going through this. I know it's not easy, but like this is the way you can get out of it. And it's easier said than done. I think you should speak to a professional because if you leave it up to yourself, it can get very tricky, and these people can be in a lot of danger. There's a lot of these victims that actually end up dead, and we don't want that. So, how to help yourself if you're experiencing domestic violence? Recognize the signs. Understand that you are experiencing abuse, and that it's not your fault. Reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800, like I said earlier, 1-800-799-7233. Actually, the acronym for the last four numbers is SAFE. So that'd be 1-800-799-SAFE. Create a safety plan. Develop a plan that includes a safe place to go to, important documents to carry with you, and a list of people that you can contact in case of emergencies. So these are some of the stats and some of the tips that I looked up because I know that I'm very vocal and advocate for these kind of situations, and especially because of what happened to that young child, Celeste. Celeste, she was I'm pretty sure in some kind of way had seen a lot of these things happen and evolve around her. from maybe finances to, intimidation, from pressuring to do stuff that she didn't want to, or maybe she did want to. I don't know. But then think about her age. Like, she's not of age to be in those kind of situations. So let me look for domestic violence amongst teens. Statistic, statistics amongst teenagers. So, and because I'm talking about teenagers now, because I know that in general, a high number of U.S. teens experience domestic violence, also known as teen dating violence. Actually, that's the actual term because they're not married. Most of these kids are dating, and they can mistake the whole, the roles of this dating relationship. And they can easily get confused and fall a victim to the domestic of teen dating violence. So I guess teen dating violence includes physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. According to national surveys, roughly 1 in 3 adolescents is a victim of abuse from a dating partner. That's a high number, guys. That's like what? If you divide it by three, that's 33% of people who are of teens that are dating. That's a high number. Also, key statistics here: data from the Centers for Disease Control, which is CDC, report that in 2021, Youth Risk Behavior Survey highlights the prevalence of abuse among high school students who have dated. So, physical violence, approximately 1 in 12 high school students experienced physical dating violence in the past year. Sexual violence, about 1 in 10 high school students experienced sexual dating violence in the past year. Other key findings from various organizations include widespread abuse amongst 1.5 million high school students in the U.S. Report being physically harmed by a dating partner in a single year. That's a high number, guys. 1.5 million. That's a lot of kids. Gender disparities: adolescent girls and young women ages 16 to 24 experience the highest rates of intimate partner violence, nearly triple the national average. 1 in 5 female high school students reports being physically and or sexually abused by a dating partner. Females are also more likely to be victims of cyber dating abuse, which goes back to this case of Celeste. I think she had reached out, even though she wasn't of age to be in a Discord messaging. But then again, as parents, we have given our kids access to a lot of these websites and apps, or maybe sometimes we don't even know, and they're already messaging with people that might be out of their age range and not amongst their teenagers, right? So in this case, Celeste had been already interacting through cyber, and maybe making hints of possible relationships with this guy, David, right? I'm tying it back to them because there's allegedly reports of them having communication as young as when she was 11 or 12 years old, communicating with a 17, 18-year-old. So think about that. Also, sexual and gender minorities, the LGBTQ youth experience disproportionately higher rates of dating violence than heterosexual students. Transgenders youth face especially high rates of physical, psychological, and cyber and sexual abuse. Long-term consequences: abuse teens are at higher risk for long-term health and behavioral problems, including substance abuse, eating disorders, and future domestic violence. So if they were part of this as a teenager, they're probably going to live it as an adult. It's going to be a cycle of life that they're going to start to unravel. Also, suicide attempts go up. Nearly 50% of young people who experience rape or physical sexual abuse, they attempt suicide. So it's a high number. That's 1 out of 2 that go through this kind of dating violence. They will suffer, especially if they've gone through physical and sexual abuse. They will probably be more likely to die by suicide. And September is Suicide Prevention Month, so it ties in hand in hand, right there. Underreporting: only about 1/3 of teens in abusive relationships tell anyone about the abuse. Many don't know how to identify the abuse, so they're afraid to tell anyone of anything that they're thinking because it might jeopardize their relationship with the person they think they love or they think they want to be with. Like in the case of Celeste, maybe she had experienced abuse, and I'm not saying by the David guy, but maybe by somebody who was she was with, or by anybody, but because she can't identify the violence, the actual domestic abuse or whatever abuse she can't label it, so she doesn't know, she's unaware of it, so she's living in that lie, and maybe she was telling her friends, but then her friends, who are they going to tell? If they don't tell anybody and trying to keep it hush hush, the problem is not identified. So teen dating violence can take multiple forms, like I said earlier: physical abuse and any intentional use of physical force to cause harm, such as hitting, slapping, pushing, playing aggressively. Sexual abuse includes any form of sexual violence, from unwanted touching to sexual coercion and rape. Emotional and verbal abuse, characterized by non physical behaviors that inflict psychological harm, such as verbal threats, insults, and jealousy, extreme jealousy. Digital abuse, using technology to harass, threaten, or control a partner. This includes demanding social media passwords, sending threatening texts, making sure that they have access to your all your social media, and that they can track and they can stalk and all that good stuff. All that bad stuff, actually, not good stuff. All that bad stuff. Stalking. Stalking is another one. Engaging in a pattern of harassing or intimidating conduct that is directed and specific at a specific person and would cause a reasonable person to fear for their safety. Like if they're following you, tracking you, commenting when you've blocked them, and then trying to get access to your accounts by a third party, or making those calls now where they're untraceable, and they're making messages, sending you texts and calling you, leaving voicemails or stuff like that. That is stalking. So as soon as you have that, you can identify it as a abuse, and talk to your counselor, talk to your parents, talk to anybody who is of authority that can investigate it as soon as possible before it gets out of hand. Also, the context and prevention. So, research has identified risk factors associated with teen dating violence, including substance use, depression, and a history of childhood abuse. Prevention efforts are underway to foster healthy relationship skills in young people and help them experience abuse. Those who, sorry, in young people who go through abuse, for them to seek support. So pretty much, if they're going through any kind of abuse, if they are aware of these situations, then they'll be more able to go seek support. Oh man, this is tough. Talking about this is tough because I know it's our kids. They're very vulnerable because they're growing. They don't understand. They can't, and also our adults. Even men that suffer some kind of violence from their partners. It's hard for to report sometimes because they don't understand. They don't have the trust. They can't confide in people. They uh, they don't want to talk about it because they think nobody will understand them, or they're very in love, with their significant partner, and they don't want to tell anybody about it. Cycle of violence. Boys who witness domestic violence are twice as likely to abuse their own partners as adults. So if your child is around domestic violence and they normalize it, they're more likely to commit abuse against their partners as adults. That is a research that's been done over the years. Usually, people who have been part of that, witnessed it, then they become the abuser. Oh, what else? Difficulty identifying abuse. Many college students struggle to identify abuse behaviors because nearly 60% don't know how to help someone experiencing it. So it goes back to awareness. If they're not aware, they're not going to report, and then it goes in a cycle of getting out of control because nobody ever, caught attention to this and was able to get the right resources at the right time. So that's some of the tips and stats that are going on amongst teenage violence, teenage dating violence, and domestic violence. Some of the stats that I think are very important to share. I I hope that you guys take that information, are able to, witness or even help out a family in going through a challenging time, because it's not easy. It's not easy trying to help somebody who's going through that time of their lives where they're having, people committing all these acts of violence against them, and they feel hopeless, and sometimes they're depressed. They don't want to talk about it, but spark up the conversation and find the resources for them as soon as possible. The sooner the better, because they need that support to guide them out of that, that horrible situation. All right, guys. So now let's cover a little bit of what's going on with David, the David case, right? The Celeste Rivas Hernandez case. It's becoming more and more information is coming out. Allegedly, there's a people reporting that David and Celeste's parents actually knew each other by some kind of form of communication, and that there was money involved between allegedly David and the parents. Pretty much saying that David was paying them off to stay quiet in kind of sense, and in return that he would be able to stay with Celeste. I don't know if that's true. That's what people are saying on the internet. But let me go share my screen so we can go into some reports that are going on, and I'll react to that. Boom. Here we are. So this is from Court TV. They usually have a lot of good updates. So I'm gonna play them soon right here after this little short break. Boom.
Called one of Gen Z's most buzzed about artists. Singer-songwriter David broke through in 2022 with hit song Romantic Homicide, going viral on TikTok and peaking at number 4 on Billboard's Hot Rock and Alternative Songs chart. But David's tour is now canceled, and he is at the center of a possible homicide investigation. This because on September 8th, the decomposing body of a teenager, Celeste Rivas, was found in an abandoned Tesla registered to David. Tonight, we have the latest in the investigation. Good evening and welcome to Closing Arguments. I'm Julia Janae.
This video was just published an hour ago.
For being with us as we follow this story that has so many unusual circumstances that all seem to point to a famed singer. On September 8th, police responded to a report of a foul odor coming from a Tesla that was impounded at Hollywood Tow Service in Los Angeles. In the trunk, investigators found the unthinkable: human remains. Investigators also learned that that car was registered to singer-songwriter David, whose real name is David Anthony Burke. These remains were dismembered, and they were later identified as a teenager named Celeste Rivas. She would have been 15 years old on the day that she was discovered. She had been reported missing from Lake Elsinore, California. That was in April of last year. The medical examiner's report stated that Celeste's body was decomposed. She was wearing a tube top, black leggings, a yellow bracelet, and stud earrings. And most interestingly, Celeste had a tattoo on her right index finger that simply read, "Shh." And singer-songwriter David also has the same tattoo on his finger. No one has been named as a...
One thing that I noticed from this tattoo, and I don't know if you notice it, and maybe I'm reaching too much, but the S and the triple H looks like an S and a 666. Kind of scary, man. I'm just trying to put it out there because maybe this guy is part of like some demonic culture, you know, sacrificial. You know how Hollywood is. There's always talks about people being sacrificed and all this, Satanism going on over there, demonic shit. So I hope that's not what it is. But I mean, I'm just pointing out that it does look like a triple, six.
suspect in this investigation, but it is considered a homicide. So we want to dig into this case and where this investigation seems to be leading. Let's bring in our guest for this hour, host of the Outlier podcast and Pop Crime TV reporter Lauren Conlon is with us. Lauren, thanks so much for joining us and talking about this case where we just seem to get more and more details that are centering around this famous person. Now, there may be a lot of our viewers who say they don't know anything about David. He's got this unusual spelling of his name where the number 4 is in it. Let's set the scene first and start with who is David? How much success does he have? And what's his background like?
We pretty much everybody who's been keeping up with my episodes, we already know that stuff. We don't want to know about that. We want to know the latest. I'm gonna skip you guys. I thought you guys gonna have some really good information. You guys are giving us what we already know. We need the latest. There's a couple of internet sleuths, like they call them the internet investigators. This chick is good. Her name is Banfield. Yeah, she gives good updates. Let's see what she got because I know that technically a lot of the updates that I gotten from her are legit. She has good sources. News Nation. Shout out to News Nation. It has 2.37 million subscribers.
Story about a musician who's become very famous, not for his music, but for the dead body in his trunk. David is his name. He spells it D4VD. If you didn't hear of him before, don't feel bad. Most people haven't. But he was starting to build traction and he was starting to fill some concert venues until he had to cancel all his concerts, but for a few. In a moment, you're going to find out where they did not cancel David's upcoming tickets and how hard it would be to get them and go to that show, if it even is going to continue. Big developments today. This is the saddest part of the story. I think about the decomposing remains of this underage girl who probably spent her 15th birthday rotting in the front trunk of a Tesla in a tow impound yard until workers said it smelled so bad they needed someone to come and take a look inside, aka police. I think about the medical examiner's job dealing with that grossly decomposed set of remains and trying to figure out, when did she die? How did she die? Who might have done this? What evidence can I give the police? What evidence can prosecutors maybe use later if they ever find who did this to her, who put her here? And somehow they have finished their job. I do not know how. It is quick. If you think about it, it's only been a couple weeks. They have released Celeste to her family, what's left of Celeste. And her family is now planning her funeral. You wait for that. That is coming in a week or so, and it is going to be a massive turnout. This is my prediction because people are angry that this girl, who was barely 14, maybe barely 13, and some might say barely 12, when she met this singer. And again, much is speculation. It's pulled together from so many people online who have gone into the Reddit threads, they've gone into the online chat groups, and they have found the photos, found the live streams, and they have determined that it is likely these two met when that little girl just surpassed her 12th birthday. So yeah, think about that. He would have been 17, 18 at the time. He's 20 now, and he is nowhere to be seen. Off the grid. Don't know if he's in California or maybe his native Texas. Nobody knows except for some gamers who said they've seen an account that looks like him on.
Man, if he's actually gaming and he's one of those, if he's actually guilty of committing this crime, he's been gaming, bro. This guy is like, I don't know, man. I don't know who this guy is. Honestly, I've been watching interviews from him before he became famous. Like when he was like coming up, he looks like an average smart kid who had been isolated because he was during COVID. He had been switched over to homeschooling, getting homeschooled. So he pretty much was homeschooled and isolated for the last 4 years before he blew up.
Fortnite, Roblox. which is typically for younger audiences. All right, so we have an expert on tonight who's going to tell us about that medical examiner's job and what they might have been able to find and how you might be able to backdate the death, which gives someone an alibi or takes an alibi away. Might also find out if she was pregnant. Might also find out if she OD'd. There's so many things that a body can tell you that only a guy like Joseph Scott Morgan, who's got the ragingly successful podcast Body Bags, is going to join me tonight to talk about all of those things. So there's something else that tells a lot of stories. Dead men do tell tales, but so do dead Teslas. If you don't know much about the Tesla, it is a treasure trove of information, more than the average car out there that has a lot of information that we're, slowly forensically learning about over the last decade. Well, Tesla's leaps and bounds above all of them. For instance, did you know that this Model Y has 8 cameras all the way around the outside and a 1 camera pointing right to the driver? Did you know that that information actually gets recorded in the car and at HQ?
Bro, if they have that video footage already, tell us who committed this crime, who is involved in this crime. Another, I know they haven't mentioned it yet, but they already moved everything out of the David's house. When I say they, it was him, well, David's camp, and also his manager, Josh. I don't know. I think his first name is Josh. Forgot his last name. But they saw the manager moving out his personal stuff. So it wasn't just David living there. It was also the manager. It becomes a person of interest because, I mean, we all know that while they investigated and they found the body, David was out in the country touring. But there's people that could have been in his house, like his manager and maybe his girlfriend, Celeste. I don't know, man. This is getting super wild and crazy. The cameras from the Tesla are going to tell us who did this. Let's find out.
Did you know there are all sorts of things that can be recorded, like when that the front trunk, when it's opened, when it closes for the last time, which would be key to find out again. When did they close Celeste in there for the last time and abandon that car? And by the way, how about this little piece of data? Where did the car drive from before it was abandoned? Where was the spot where the trunk opened?
All that data, man.
All of that, I'm going to talk with an expert who does this for a living, and I cannot wait to find out what it is that the police like.
They're going to catch somebody for sure.
So 2 different things. Let's start here. If you have ever wondered what it feels like to chase down leads in a real life mystery, moment by moment, then look no further than the disappearance and the highly suspicious death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez of Lake Elsinore, California. By now, her name is almost as well known as the rising young R&B singer who appears to have loomed large in her very short life and possibly her death. His name is David, spelled D4VD, but his legal name is David Anthony Burke. One of our producers spent much of the past 2 days in Celeste's hometown, about 70 miles southeast of Los Angeles, and he was rolling tape the whole trip. He shot video you're not going to see anywhere else, beginning with the street where Celeste grew up, and apparently the street where Celeste was desperate to leave. You're going to see a lot more of this in just a moment. But here's the thing about chasing leads. Sometimes you got to hit pause. Sometimes you got to hit the pavement. But other times, you just need to hit the internet. Case in point, just a few hours ago, we thought we had a major break in this case, which could help answer a very important question, and that is, when exactly Celeste died? It was online sleuths who found a video from a David concert in Silver Spring, Maryland, in late August. In the video, look at that girl. Sure does look a lot like Celeste, standing in a balcony.
Yeah, I've seen that video where there's a young lady and kind of like in the private area where David is performing in the stage, and in the top left hand corner, there's like a balcony for like private guests, and there's a young lady that looks like Celeste with the same hairstyle, same color skin, wearing like a black outfit with jeans or something like that. And then next to her is a young black male, and they're hanging out watching the show. So it does look like her, but I think they're confirming, which I heard earlier from another source, that it was not Celeste, but I guess they got the update at News Nation and they're trying to report that it probably was her, but I just saw that it wasn't. So I don't know. It's confusing.
A lot of attention from the performer who's down on the stage. David did 2 shows at that venue, and as part of a now canceled tour, the dates remain for posterity. And that means the video would have been filmed on either August 23rd or August 24th. That's 15 or 16 days before Celeste's badly decomposed remains were found in the trunk of his Tesla. If there were proof that she'd be in Maryland or anywhere else towards the end of August, it would narrow the window of her time of death considerably. But friends, I don't have good news here. This is not proof. It's not proof that Celeste was there, because late today we found out that that woman at the Silver Spring concert is not Celeste. It's somebody else. And I know that is a crushing blow to you, to me, to my team, and to everybody who wants to see this case solved, to everyone who wants justice for Celeste. Because look, yes, I get it. At first glance, the hair, it's uncanny. She even wore a black.
Yeah. Yeah, this girl, if you see, I don't have the picture right now. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There's a picture or a video out there circulating of Celeste so supposedly a girl that looks like Celeste at the concert in that balcony, but it's not her. Supposedly, yeah. They already confirmed that it's not her. Let's see if we can find it. It's right here.
Fans have been uploading pictures and videos from David Silver Spring.
So you see this girl right here? That was in April 24th of 2025 at a concert for David and this young lady right here, which resembles Celeste a lot, with jeans and a black tube top. She was there, but they're confirming supposedly that it was not her. But let's play the rest of the video.
Concert. And after seeing David send hearts to the balcony, they believe Celeste was up there with his brother Caleb. You take a look at the top, she has on a black tube top, but with blue jeans. And her being with her brother is a possibility, since she was backstage at one of his concerts June 27th in Los Angeles. Here's a zoom in. And then in this clip, you see David sending hearts up there to the balcony. Now, no one knows if this is Celeste or not, but this is just something that the fans pointed out. If that was Celeste, that means Celeste was alive August the 24th, 2025. This literally could be.
She looks very similar, man. Maybe this guy had a thing for girls like look like that. If it's not her, which man, I would say that's her.
David case updates
But I don't
now.
know.
So apparently people were saying that she was last seen alive at one of his concerts last month. Here's the reference picture. Apparently her and David's brother were like up on stage. David made a heart motion to her during the video.
So you see, like a lot of people saw that, but now they're saying that it's not her, so it's hard to tell, man. It's hard to tell what's going on. But another update that I heard, and I don't know if it's true, but like I said, a guy named Gus that was supposedly dating or seeing this young lady Celeste ended up dead around the same time that they found the body. And this guy's name is Gus. And during a lot of the investigating being done by these internet sleuths, right? Investigators, online investigators, not official, they found out this guy named Gus was involved in some sort of way with Miss Celeste, and somebody reported that that guy ended up shot and died a few weeks ago. So I'm trying to look for that information, but I haven't found it, to be honest. So it could be just a rumor, but just something to think about. If this could be a passion crime of some sort, that's probably could be one of the reasons why all of this unraveled. But yeah, that's one of the. Let me just go back to the News Nation one. Let's see.
They're not saying so. They're not saying anything. So again, we took our cameras and our crew to Celeste's hometown, and our producer shot. Been a lot of people.
I guess they're saying that the family's not talking, which is true. I haven't seen anybody from her camp like do an official, like from her family, do an official like press conference or.
On a regular basis. We do know tonight that Celeste's remains have now been released to her family, and that her family is planning a funeral for her on October 4th, presumably in Lake Elsinore. The fact that her remains have been released right now, that is striking, because the LA Medical Examiner has not announced, quote, the mode or manner of death. Police are treating it like a homicide. But if there's any evidence that actually proved it's a homicide, they're not saying so. They're not saying anything. So again, we took our cameras and our crew to Celeste's hometown, and our producer shot this video of the scenic part of where she grew up, so you can see how beautiful this town is. The views are spectacular. I mean, look at this. It's sort of surrounded by mountains.
That looks amazing.
I'll see an existence.
They have water nearby,
Los Angeles. So
mountains. I love mountains, and I'm pretty sure it's a very, very beautiful weather.
It's like this. But we now know that Celeste didn't want to be here. She went missing from this town at least 3 times, beginning apparently in January of last year. That time, sources say she was discovered by LA police a month later in the Hollywood Hills, where David took up residence in a very expensive rented house beginning in February. Celeste also ran away in March, and then again for a third time, the final time in April. We know from a missing poster.
Wait. She said that they found her in an expensive house in LA that could have been David's. I hadn't heard that from by the cops. Let's play that again.
Expensive rented house beginning in February. Celeste also ran away in March. That time, sources say she was discovered by LA police a month later in the Hollywood Hills, where David took up residence in a very expensive rented house beginning in February. Celeste also ran away in March.
That's crazy. So they picked her up there once. Why wouldn't he be a suspect of this already? I mean, did I hear that right, guys? I hope I heard that right, but that's what it sounds like. That she had been picked up from there previously, like last year or something.
And then again for a third time, the final time in April. We know from a missing poster that was circulated back then that police were on the case. But you would think after the first incident, when they got her in the Hollywood Hills and brought her home, you'd think they'd know where to look when she took off a second time, and then a third time. When Celeste was in Lake Elsinore, she hung out a lot at this store. It says liquor store, but it's actually a liquor and convenience store, and the school bus actually stops right by it. So our producer decided to pay a visit and stop by to take a look, because this location is key in.
I don't think a liquor store should be a convenience store, guys. So if you not a good sign. You attract the wrong people and the wrong vibe in that kind of store like that. If you're a kid buying chips there, no. If I was a parent, I'd be like, do not go in there. I'll buy you all the chips you need. Go to my house. No, don't be going to no freaking convenience store with liquor in there. It's crazy.
In Celeste's story, because it's one of the last known locations where Celeste was seen before disappearing the second time in March of 2024. And it is also the place where her family came looking for her. The owner of the store remembers seeing Celeste often and reportedly gave her family video from his security cameras during one of the instances when she ran away and they came to ask him for help. Have you seen her? Can you show us your video? You're going to hear a lot more about what was on that video in just a moment. So stay right where you are. And I want to be really
Supposedly on that video, you can see a car picking up the young lady at Celeste, but it's hard to see because they pick her off like right as the camera where it loses angle and vision from the that scene. So you really don't see the vehicle. You just see her getting on a vehicle, but you can't really tell which kind of vehicle it is. But man, the story gets a lot more interesting by the day and scary because this is a teenage kid, man, that lost her life to possibly being around adult people who were not in their right state of mind. First of all, for being in a relationship for a young girl like that, and then second of all, for putting her in harm's way and possibly murdering her and doing away with her body, man. So sad, so sad. Prayers for her and her family and everybody who's involved in this that there's justice for Celeste and they catch and solve this crime as soon as possible because a lot of us are out there we're concerned of what's going on and we want to know the whole story, the true story, so we can educate our teenagers out there and our kiddos to not subscribe to any of this type of relationships or this behavior and to always help out their friends if they know of somebody who's going through a similar situation that they seek out for help because they can be the lifeline for that child or that person. But yeah, man, another episode here for the Infinite Talks pod. I just wanted to share that information today and talk about the case a little bit and see if there's any updates that are relevant of what's going on. But like we know, there's a video of the there in the convenience store. There's videos from the Tesla that are unraveling. There's information from the body that's been released to the parents already. They already did all the studies and all the data that needed to be picked up from that investigation. All of that is going to come up pretty soon, and we should have more news on what's going to happen with the whole case because I feel like we're going to find out if David was the actual abuser here or the criminal in this case. And everything's pointing to him, but there's other people that could be involved in that. So, whoo, a lot of information out there, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, we are not a brand; we are a frequency. So, peace, peace to y'all, and God bless y'all. May Jesus be in your heart, your mind, your body. The only true God, the only true Savior. Amen. Love y'all. Take care.